Is this the end of John Tortorella's reign as a head coach in the National Hockey League? That is the first topic of conversation in the 5-minute edition of Power Plays powered by FanDuel. The Philadelphia Flyers announcing today that Tortorella is out. Brad Shaw will be the interim coach for the Flyers the rest of the season. Coco, is this the end for Torts?
I think it absolutely is, AK. I mean, we're talking about a coach who's 66 years old, and you look at the coaching style that he has, I think it's run its course in the National Hockey League. The new coaches are coming in, they're younger, they're better communicators. Not saying that John Tortorella isn't, but you just don't see the style that he preaches on his players and that he demands of his players exist anymore. And so I see John Tortorella still being a big part of the game. I mean, he's definitely a guy that could be very useful in somebody's front office. I think he's a guy that can come in on an interim basis in years moving forward on a team that's not meeting up to expectations and decides to make a move midway through the season. But to see John Tortorella get a long-term deal somewhere else, I think we're way past that now.
Perhaps he'll reprise his role as a panelist here at TSN alongside James Dundee. I suppose you never know. Let's shift our focus to Montreal, where Sam Montembeault has been struggling of late. Do you see him, do you project him as a future stud number one in the NHL?
Well, what do we look at as a number one stud in the NHL anymore as a goaltender? I mean, I can only list a handful of guys right now that can, as a goalie, that can win you a game on their own. And I don't look at Sam Montembeault as a guy in that category and can, win you a game, win you a playoff series, maybe even win you a Stanley Cup. But what I do see him being is a legit number one goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens. I talked to you about it earlier this week. I had him pegged in as one of Canada's goaltenders because I've seen the growth and the progression in his game covering the Montreal Canadiens. And look, he's been one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League coming out of the Four Nations. He's struggled as of late over his last 5 games, not putting up those same numbers. But I think for him, it's more of a fatigue issue right now. The Montreal Canadiens have to prioritize getting him a quality backup so that they can spread the games out evenly between him and so that he can carry that workload of being a number one goaltender consistently.
A team that is certainly not struggling is the Calgary Flames. They're being led by Jonathan Hubderdeau and Nazem Kadri. They are 4 points out of a playoff spot, but the Flames have 3 games in hand. Do you think they get in? Plus 210 on FanDuel.
I'm going to bank on the Flames getting in here just because I don't believe in the Minnesota Wild. No one's catching the St. Louis Blues because they are absolutely on fire. And the way the Calgary Flames have been winning games as of late, they're doing it in comeback fashion. And I think they've built something really positive there. So with the games in hands that they have and the way Minnesota's playing, I absolutely could see the Calgary Flames making a late push here and getting in.
And what an incredible story that would be. Dustin Wolf would garner some serious consideration for the Calder Trophy if that did indeed happen. Let's flip over to the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are being led by John Tavares at this point, who's up to 32 goals on the season. He is a pending unrestricted free agent. I'm going to set the over-under at 3.5 years on his next contract. Are you taking the over or are you taking the under?
I'm taking the over in this one, and people would call me crazy just by looking at his age, but there's a comparable going into last season. His name is Steven Stamkos, coming off a 40-goal season, got a 4-year deal in the open market. And John Tavares will enter the open market scoring the most goals out of any free agent right now, having an incredible year. Look, I think his contract is going to depend on where he goes. If it's in Toronto, I can see more of a team-friendly deal. Maybe even some deferred money. Stretch the contract out a little more so the cap hit stays lower. But if he hits that open market and he's coming off the season that he's coming off of, I see a Steven Stamkos deal in his future.
Yeah, it's possible he's the second best free agent out there after his teammate in Mitch Marner. All right, let's wrap with this. The Colorado Avalanche, we know the trade they made, sending Mikko Rantanen to Carolina, who's now in Dallas. Martin Necas has been awesome alongside Nathan McKinnon. If you had to back one of the Dallas Stars at plus 550 or the Avalanche at plus 850 to win the Stanley Cup, where would your money go?
I'm taking the value with the Colorado Avalanche at plus 850 because they're not too far removed from winning the Stanley Cup. They might get Landeskog back. They made tremendous improvements, both of their goaltender and the depth of this group. Look, the Dallas Stars were my preseason pick to win the Stanley Cup. And again, I can't believe we're talking about a stupid playoff format that has these two teams playing in the first round. But I look at the star power. McKinnon, probably going to win an MVP again. Makar, best player on defense. And you look at the depth that they have through the middle of the ice. The value there to me is with the Colorado Avalanche.
Man, that series will be absolutely electric should it happen. Much like this segment, I might add. This has been Power Plays, powered by FanDuel.